Snowboarding yesterday.
Yeah. So she went snowboarding yesterday.
Yeah, we're recording. Hello.
And we have some tea and water. Thank you guys for watching. And I wanted to interview my girlfriend, Anastasia. She goes by Stas.
Hello. Stasia. Yeah. Nice to see everyone.
And one of the reasons I asked her to be with us here today is because of her experience in the primary Montessori classroom. So one of my goals in creating this channel is to help moms who may or may not have access to a Montessori education. Because we can still do Montessori at home as well. There's so much we can do at home. Even if your child is in a Montessori classroom, there's so much that can go into building their concentrations. So let's get started. One of Anastasia's goals is to have a sustainable charter high school. And so I wanted to give her an opportunity to share a little bit more about that.
Okay. During the 9-month Montessori training, our trainer Namal was talking about the different sensitive periods and kind of stages of growth throughout life. And I got butterflies in my stomach when she was talking about the adolescent years from 12 to 18. And it reminded me of when I was 15. And I was so frustrated with my mom and all these adults around me who just seemingly forgot what it was like to be a teenager. And I said, I will never forget what it's like to be a teenager. So that memory came back, and those butterflies like stuck with me. And thinking about it more, I'm really passionate, like Christina, about the Montessori philosophy, and I think that's why you can do it at home and or do it within a school system, a Montessori school. But it's a philosophy that we're supporting. So the philosophy is encouraging the students to, or the children, the growing person to take, kind of take ownership of their life as they can throughout life. Like when they're young, the concept of independence, if you capture that, if a child is independently getting dressed and cleaning up after themselves and everything at a young age, and they don't have mom or a caretaker doing it for them, then that independence is just kind of like a innate strength, sense of power, so that they can put their energy into learning and doing other awesome things. But this high school idea really caught on to me, and I just mentally developed this whole idea of what I'd like to offer adolescents, mostly from like 7th grade through 14th grade is kind of how I say it, but I say it like that because I think between the ages of 12 to 18, let's just say it like that, so 7th through what would be traditional 12th grade, could easily, all of those state standards and everything can be met much more quickly than how the present school systems are set up. Most homeschooled students I know graduate at age 16, and I'm like, after working at the Montessori school that took 1-year-olds through 6-year-olds at the time, I did help write their charter that was approved, so now they go through 6th grade. But after working at that school, I then worked at a public high school for a few years and saw how limiting both the teachers and the students were. The teachers were there because they were all heart, they wanted to be there. but they have red tape in a huge way, and that they can only, do so much outside of the basic curriculum. And then the teacher says, everyone on page 49 today. Well, and I'm like, no, not everyone learns
at the same
pace. It's just impossible, and it's impractical, and it's kind of a waste of everyone's time. So the teacher could not teach at the slowest pace, at the pace of the lowest student, because that would be way too slow, and they definitely couldn't teach to the fastest paced students. So they were going kind of not slowest, but next to slowest that they could go, and everyone had to kind of go on. So no wonder behavior problems become an issue, and boredom and drugs and all these other things that are kind of typical in the teenage years. Anyhow, I'd like to develop a curriculum. I have developed a curriculum so that these adolescents can be working with each other, but also with community members in projects, whether it's at the parks and recs, city parks and rec, county parks and rec, whatever. But then there's all these other awesome programs that non-governmental organizations, small governments, they put their energy into, and it's like, why not have extra hands? Like, let's say the adolescents of 7th through 12th grade, helping as they can, and then they get connection with the community, and then it'd be on a quarter system, like a year-round quarter system, so that they have at least a semester working growing food. In a sustainable school. So that's my idea, is it'll be Montessori philosophy based, but I'm not going to call it Montessori. My real passion in life is sustainability, and so I want the students to learn sustainable practices and philosophies, and put things to the test, and try things out. And so of course they have to grow some food, because getting food hundreds of miles away is just really creates a really dependent system, a system dependent on antibiotics for the animals, and chemicals for the plants, and then transportation and everything. But if you grow locally, then it's much more sustainable, makes sense. But then I want them to have experience in helping run a business, so maybe a little lunch cafe, making wonderful healthy food from what they grow and everything, to a community quarter every year, where they're actually working within the community doing different projects, and then a quarter of, let's just say, more concentrated academic stuff, if you will, but that will be worked on at the pace of the student, so everyone will have an individualized education plan. Right now, that IEP is only reserved for students in a what's it called, a special education program. But I'm like, no, all of us can benefit from an individualized education plan. So that's kind of an overview of what I like. And then these students can easily get their high school diploma, I'm thinking by age 16, and then those last couple years, why not work towards an associate? So they choose a kind of a topic that they'll be able to kind of delve into more. So that's kind of my idea. So by the time they would traditionally get a high school diploma, they would have the high school diploma and an associate's degree.
And some of the charter schools do that already, right? Charter high
I'm sure
schools?
some of them, but not very many. There's programs where they can go take classes at the community college, or dual enrollment of community college and high school, something like that. But it's not often that you would also get an associate's degree while you're getting your diploma.
That's impressive.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. So, when you say philosophy and sustainability, can you give me an idea of what the classroom would look like as far as academics
Oh,
concerned.
there won't be a classroom necessarily. There's going to be kind of tables and standing and sitting chairs, like we're maybe standing and sitting desks, but more of like bar height tables, lower tables. They can move about using their laptops, moving them where they need. They can, you're talking about the academic quarter with the classroom.
What would it look like? Right?
Yeah.
And you'd have all the children. How would the children be grouped?
More like an age range of like seventh and 8th grade, or maybe 7th, 8th, and 9th grade together, so that we don't have like 17, 18-year-olds with 12-year-olds type of thing, but we'll have 12 and 13-year-olds together, and 14, 15-year-olds. Kind of separate a little bit more like that, just for like more than anything, so that 12-year-olds aren't being exposed to as such vulgar language that sometimes older kids can use, and just like natural age separation type of thing. But for the most part, I think they need to be working together. Like one project I think would be so cool would be like 7th and 8th graders studying the past of the Colorado River corridor from Colorado to Mexico, and like 7th grade would be looking at the actual, like, what did it look like geographically in the past before community developments around it, and before the water's being delivered to LA and wherever else it's taken. And then the 8th grade would be looking more at like the biology in and around the river. What did it look like with the humpback chub and the frequent flooding, or the occasional flooding that's not any longer a natural part of the system, because currently we have a dam that releases water, and they're trying lately to improvise more of a natural flooding setting. But so then I'd have 9th graders look at the current like community social impacts of the river. Where does the water go? What is it providing water for? And then the 10th grade would look at like the present, current, recent history, used biologically, and like more of the science-based stuff of the river and the corridor. And then 11th grade would look at possible future social implications, if we keep things current as they are, or if we could modify water use and whatever. And then 12th grade would look at the the more science-based plants and animals and geographic and hydrologic implications if we kept things the same versus changed diversion and all that. So anyway, that's like that'd be a huge project, but it'd be really cool to have all the students kind of look at something that's so impactful and so close to home. I mean, the Colorado River affects the whole Southwest.
Well, you separated it by grades. If the 7th graders wanted to work on something the 8th graders were working on, they'd be in the same room so they can all help each other and work together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like when I was teaching in 6 to 12, some of the 12-year-old moms were really concerned about the 6-year-olds being exposed to the 12-year-olds, but the 12-year-olds helped. And it actually encouraged the 12-year-olds to be better behaved than they normally would, because they see that and I imagine the same thing would happen. We have a 12 to 15 adolescent in Montessori, but we don't have anything 15 to 18 that's in place for a particular kind of training.
Yeah.
So there are Montessori high schools, but it's really project-based and building their concentration and then involving them in the community.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because eventually they're going out to the community, whether they go to a university community or a community in which they go work and pay rent and,
Right.
the whole working community, so it's like either way they're going to be stepping out of most likely their parents' home soon and have to become a part of the community, whether they like it or not.
Exactly. Right. We talk about going out in elementary for the 6 to 12 training.
Mm-hmm.
And they encourage parent volunteers to participate with the classroom and to for the teachers to organize opportunities for the children to be involved with a mentor. Mm-hmm. And then they learn a trade through that mentor.
You have to have mentors.
2 or 3 days a week. And the mentor is a community member.
Yeah.
And
I can imagine people from the NAU Forestry Department or the USGS, U.S. Geological Survey.
And we have NASET too, if they want to go and open their own business.
Sure. Yeah.
There's
so
all
many
sorts
opportunities
of here.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
Lots of resources.
So I wanted to ask you about your sons.
Mm-hmm.
She has 2 sons who are amazing. Yeah, they are. And your experience in raising them, because I know that they both were exposed to Montessori and Waldorf.
Well, Shadrach never went to a Montessori school, and that's my number one regret as a parent. I had a chance to go to Montessori kindergarten, and my husband is an ex-husband, was an elementary teacher, he went traditional, and I let him make the decision he said, oh, there's a great kindergarten teacher at the first school that he taught at. He should be with her. She's a real seasoned teacher and everything. And she was nice. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her. But, I guess it's one of those compromises as a parent that you make. And I was so new to Montessori at the time. That is when he went to kindergarten and it was a full day program. It was like, oh, well, maybe I'll go get a part-time job and, help pay the mortgage, just we were in home at the time. And, but I'll have to find a place for my younger son first, who is 3 years younger. And, so that's what I did first. I looked in the yellow pages and found this Montessori school, and I called up and I was explained that you come see the school first and then you put yourself on a waiting list. Good idea, by the way, parents. Don't just put your kids up on a waiting list for a school that you have not observed. But so I did, and I loved it. So I called her back later and I said, oh, it was awesome. I'd love to put him on the list, but I can't start him right away. She had an opening right then. I said, because I'm waiting till I get a job so I can pay for it. And, oh, what kind of work do you do? And after graduating college, I hadn't actually worked outside the home, and so I said, oh, I'm thinking secretarial. I don't know. I'm pretty open. She said, oh, I need an assistant. How about you bring your son for free and be my assistant? And I'm like, well, you can't beat that, right? If you're really open to any kind of job, why not? So I did. Thank goodness I did, because, well, and then I got kudos from the director who I worked right with, that I was a natural. And that was really nice to hear, because I was a young mom. I didn't know in any comparison form. I had never known about Montessori before. It was just new to me, all of it. And so she said, if you do the training, then, you can have a job here. And I said, oh, I mean, teacher, not just be an assistant. So I did my first year being an assistant, actually started in October. So then our training started in September, and that's where I met Christina. We did the primary training together in 2005, 2006. Nice long time ago.
17 years
it's
ago.
Pretty cool. And then I survived that year. It was a lot of travel because I lived in Flagstaff, and the training's 4 days a week in Phoenix. And gosh, it was exhausting quite physically, and I'm like trying to hold down this part-time job at the school while I'm working a few days a week. So that was, and mom to a 3-year-old and 6-year-old. But anyway, you asked about my sons and their exposure to different schools. Well, so what I was going to say is my older son, although he never went to Montessori school, I applied the principles at home. I had like shelves down low where there were bowls and plates and cups or glasses and things that they could easily access. I kept things like cereal and other things that I wanted them to use for themselves down low on the shelves and stuff. Always had just like things in the fridge that they could easily access. I think for a while, especially as Ian was young, because he was only 2 when I started at the school, but I would have just a pitcher about this tall of milk in the fridge in the morning, so he didn't have to pull out the big jug, whatever it was, and so he could just pull it out and pour it. So, and then there's the whole philosophy part of it. I hadn't done the training yet, but the director of the school had me read a book called Positive Discipline. Highly recommend for any parent, teacher. She has like Positive Discipline for teachers, Positive Discipline for parents, but this was like kind of the original Positive Discipline book, and really, really a good book for me to apply a lot of kind of similar ideas at home. I mean, ideas of how to react or deal with behaviors at home and stuff, as well as in the classroom. Oops, sorry. So anyhow, but once I did the Montessori training, I had all this extra philosophy to kind of apply at home. And then, both boys taught themselves how to read at age 4. And I really think it's because I read to them every night. That's it. Simply. I mean, like, not just at nighttime, sometimes too. Sometimes just during the day, we'd pick up a book. But at least that consistent, like, language, I'm communicating with them. The older son, he very loquacious from right away, a very young age. So he's talking to everyone. I mean, like, as a 2-year-old even, he's talking to 80-year-olds. I mean, he's just so friendly, so cute. But his brother didn't talk as much because he had a brother who would talk for him, Yeah. but still, reading by himself at age 4. Ian was an origami artist at a very young age. 2 years old, I think, is when he started at the Montessori school. He started folding paper and stuff, and it was one of the things. I mean, it's really good if you're, developing your hand-eye coordination and everything. So, anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You did.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How did you feel about Waldorf compared to Montessori?
Oh, I was actually opposed to Waldorf initially because I think that it's the biggest disservice that they can offer a child to keep them from reading and writing until 2nd grade, when they can put their hand over their head and touch their ear or something like that. I was like,
I thought it was when they lost their first teeth.
There's so many connections.
Right. I did my
I think it's before first teeth or after first teeth, because don't you lose first teeth around 5 years old-ish?
Well, I did my master's thesis. Remember we had to do that for Loyola? Yeah. We both did Loyola College together as well. I did it on Rudolf Steiner in Waldorf.
Okay.
And his philosophy was around when they lived.
Okay.
But that's a new one. I hadn't heard that.
You hadn't heard that?
Yeah.
Well, either way, I was actually opposed to Waldorf because of that. And I was like, no way. I mean, it makes sense that Dr. Montessori realized it's not like she introduced this whole new concept. All she did was put language to something she observed of sensitive periods. Like, of course a child is coming out of the womb receptive to language, because that's what we do as humans. We communicate about food and about safety and, as needed, or later on, philosophy and everything. So anyway, of course, the sensitive period, those first 6 years of life, is language. So to keep a child, and then reading and writing is man-made, you know. So it's like you have to, if you want a child to be reading and writing, which we all want everyone to be literate, then you gotta introduce it while the sensitive period is innate in the child those first 6 years, you know. And so I was opposed at first, but so Ian was in Montessori from age 2 and then through 3rd grade, and then at 4th grade I switched him over to Waldorf. Shadrach, my older son, he started Waldorf at age 5th grade. Those later years were awesome because my kids' minds were just, you know, sponges as they naturally are, and just they were teaching me about, you know, things that I wasn't introduced to, like Nordic mythology and different mythologies that they're taught at the Waldorf school. It was really cool because they at a young age could see why we have maybe certain traditions or words or phrases in our current system and everything from some of these mythologies. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What are your goals in the next 2 years?
Honestly, my next 2 years, I have a 4.5 year goal at this point to start my school. When my younger son Ian graduated high school in the spring, I decided, okay, I'm giving myself 5 years to start my school, because once I do, I'm going to be dedicating my everything to it. And I want a little time for myself. I want to travel and stuff. But every time I talk about my sustainability school idea with people, they say, oh, have you heard of the program in, I don't know, Maui, Fiji, Pennsylvania? I mean, like, there's so many cool programs out there.
You want to go and look at them.
I want to showcase them.
Right.
I actually want to interview them, and not in a judgmental way at all interview. It's more like, I want to show the world there's already so many cool things out there. There are good education programs that, you know, I love Montessori, and I hope that a good number of the cool programs I feature will be Montessori, and I have a feeling they will be, but, you know, that I'm not going to be exclusive on Montessori itself. It's just more like, what good ideas are already in play? I want people to have, like, a positive outlook on the future. You know, I mean, a lot of things are bleak right now for a lot of people, and I don't feel that way, so I want to just bring some positivity into the world and be like, no, there's good things, and there will always be good things as long as we intend good things, you know, like, so I want to showcase these awesome programs that are already in play, and maybe see how did they respond during the pandemic, or how have they bounced back, or whatever. So in the next 2 years, I really would love to start maybe traveling to some of these places, or at least doing Zoom interviews or something, so that I can start showcasing some of these cool things.
That's awesome. So you already touched upon this a little bit. What do you see for the future of education here in the U.S. given the pandemic and how it impacted so many families? Like, if we, God forbid, do end up in a situation again where we're back home.
I do see almost everything going to the screen, which I think is such a shame, because we're social beings. We need touch. We need communication. Zoom saved my social life during the pandemic. Like, I joined these women's groups, and they were mostly in the Midwest, and here I am in Arizona, and it was awesome to actually make connections with people, even across the country and everything. Like, no, I had some really meaningful connections electronically, but, you know, kids, I don't think are meant to learn in a silo of click this and type that, and I don't know, I think I think people will always like come back to the idea, oh, well, we can just go online. But I really hope that that's not going to be the norm, because like I'm a part of some like Facebook parenting groups and stuff, and they're like, who do you recommend where I can put my kid where they can, have interaction? I had a friend who paid good money during the pandemic to bring his kids to a particular home who had like a total of maybe 8 kids total during the pandemic, just so they could work. He's a nurse and she was, outside the home too, but so they had to work, but also like so the kids could actually have a little more structured educational experience, not just online during the whole thing. I mean, like,
was it Prenda?
I don't think that one was Prenda, but thank goodness for Prenda now. I've even thought of doing Prenda out of my house or something. I'm not so sure I want to go back to teaching per se. Like leading the thing. I might do it. I might, because I really do like kids. But I might, because I really like the older kids, I might just do the, middle of the high school. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. But anyway, I think that the future of education is going to be a combination of both electronic and hopefully hands-on still. I mean, I can't tell you the value between the Waldorf and the Montessori philosophies that my kids grew up in. Like, hands-on, getting out in nature, picking up rocks and sticks, and all this other stuff is highly important, not just for mental growth, but like spiritual growth too. So future of education, I think the education system as it stands was way in trouble before the pandemic, and the pandemic just emphasized it even more. So I think we need really creative ideas on the solution for it, but I also think we need really willing and daring parents to allow their kids to try different programs or whatever. Like my high school sustainability program, it will have a day school option, but I also hope that all of my friends who've ever done boarding school said it was the best time of their childhood, almost like they, and it's always as adolescents they went and did it. So I hope that parents will be a little more willing to like let their kids go to boarding schools and have that experience. So
I would be curious to see what some of the boarding schools did during the pandemic,
because
they keep doing their day-to-day
exactly
activities. We've got one in Ohio, Concord, Hershey Montessori